This week, we are going for the most ironic episode possible. If you look across the table from me, you see absolutely no one, and yet I am going to talk about bringing guests onto your podcast. Yes, let's get into it. I want to thank you for tuning in this week, because this week, we're going to play the irony thing up. Like I said, we're going to crank it up to 11 in terms of the irony, because yes, there is no one sitting across the table from me, but we want to talk about guests because we encourage a lot of people to have guests on, and there are so many reasons for that. And I'm going to give you some stats and specs on it this week, as well as some other things that kind of play into that really can bring your podcast way, way, way up. Maybe even skip a level, not the next level, maybe even get to skip a level. So there was a report that recently came out that was done by Pew Research Center, and it looked at the prevalence of guests in top-ranked podcasts and analyzed guest appearances in 2022-2023. 76% of top-ranked podcasts featured guests. 76%. We're just going to call it 3/4, right? A little over 3/4. 78% of guests appeared on at least one episode. Repeat guests accounted for half of all guest appearances. So they're looking at the top podcasts. They didn't give necessarily the top section of podcasts, but what they said is there were 7,000 plus individuals that appeared on podcasts in the 2022. 22% of the guests made multiple appearances, accounting for 50% of the appearances. So 50% of the time that you saw someone on screen, they were on there twice. And that becomes a very valuable tool. And we'll dive into that here a little bit more in a bit, but keep that in the back of your head, because that's some interesting stuff here. So guest appearances by topic. Obviously, I mean, we're going to look at the top genres for that to be in. Sports, entertainment, politics, and self-help podcast were the most likely to have guests. True crime was the least likely to have guests, with those being 56% guest-free. And when you realize most of those are just telling stories, it's probably easier for them not to have a guest on. News podcasts, and a lot of you that are doing business, it's going to fit into that news, education / entertainment arena. 89% had at least one guest. 89%. I mean, we're 9 out of 10 here, all intents and purposes. Why? Why are having guests on so important? This is what's going to be interesting about it. And in this, you're going to see some of the advantages and stuff like that come out, and to why it's a good idea for you to start thinking about having guests in on your podcast. And that, as I've said, is something that we can help out with in terms of coaching the guests, in terms of making sure that the guests are set up right, in terms of making sure that you're addressing and getting the right information out of guests. In fact, next week's episode is going to cover some of that. So be ready for that. The overall topic of this is you're going to have an increased reach and audience engagement. I mean, that plain and simple. I know so many of you have heard me say multiple times that if you're looking to expand your audience, use someone else's. Get someone else's audience. They've already got people. Have their people come over and talk with your people. It's a huge, huge thing. So you will be able to tap into your guest's follower base, and that's going to expose your podcast or your information, or let's call it your content, the content that you're building for your business. That is going to expose that to a brand new audience. Now, is it going to be a 1-for-1 in terms of you're going to get their whole audience and all of them are suddenly going to subscribe to you? No, that's not the case. That's not the point. It is going to show it to the people that are most likely to come over and most likely to enjoy your stuff and most likely to eventually turn into customers, clients, or whatever for you. The other thing that's great about this is you're going to get fresh perspectives and diverse viewpoints. as I'm doing my research and as I'm figuring out how I'm going to talk about these items, I go out and look at a number of different things because I want to make sure that I'm getting not just one bit of information. We see it so much today. People get all their information from one source and it's slanted or bent or it's just, it gets stale. So I'm intentional about going out and finding that because, look, that's what I need to present to you guys. When you have a guest on, that's built in. You've got someone else's perspective. You've got someone else's information built right in. Just super easy to have that come on over for you. Like I said, the other thing is you're going to tap into new audiences, but in the same sense, you're going to get some increased social media promotion out of that, just because of the fact that when you have a guest on, you need to have an operation set up to make sure that they are sharing the stuff that they are involved in. It sometimes takes a couple of good swift kicks to make sure that they're doing this. But really, if you get them engaged and if you help create a great interview, it's going to be very easy for them to share that on their social media. And when they do that, once again, you're expanding your audience and you're getting that added presence. So not only do you get their audience, but when someone shares it and someone else likes it and someone else sees it, it's going to show it to more people in your audience. We talked about how the RSS feed is a great way to kind of insure against that when you run as an audio podcast through RSS, which is amazing. But to grow that audience and to make sure that your current audience is seeing it, to have a few people share it is great. And if your guest shares your content, that just makes the world so much easier. So let's talk about another big piece to this, and that is that credibility and thought leadership. If you're going to invite someone on your podcast to talk about stuff, you're probably not going to invite someone on that doesn't know what you do, isn't related to what you do, and has no idea what's going on. That's just not going to be a good podcast then. No one wants, maybe some people want to see that as a funny thing, but really, you're going to build yourself up. And the way you do that is by partnering with relevant experts. So bring other people in that do what you do, but aren't necessarily competitors. Let's talk marketing, for instance. If you are a marketing firm and you specialize in SEO, well, it's great to have someone come in that works on content. So you guys don't necessarily compete, but you can say things that will support each other and you can show a different side of the business and you can work with other pieces of that. Let's go automotive or motorcycles because I'm familiar with those too. If you're a motorcycle dealership, to call up someone and have someone in that customizes motorcycles, those are two completely different clients, two completely different branches of things. They share clients. They don't compete with each other. They share clients. Same industry. So to have someone come in to talk about something like that is just a great way to build that. And once again, it builds that expertise, which you're going to be able to showcase here in the podcast room. You're here to talk about what you do. People are listening because you're the expert. Well, bring on a guest who also is an expert because once again, going backwards, we're going to get that fresh perspective. We're going to get those diverse viewpoints. You're going to get that social media promotion in that, but you're also going to gain that credibility because, hey, if you're an expert and there's another expert here, boy, that really steps up. I'm listening to two experts. This is interesting stuff. The top line of that too is now you're able to build those relationships and community. And this is one of the things that I love about the podcast studio. I've had the chance to work with, talk to, all this other stuff, people that I probably wouldn't have access to otherwise. But if I call them up and say, hey, come on in, sit on down in the studio and let's have a conversation. Let's share ideas. Let's share thoughts and let's share audiences. That is a pretty big thing for people to say, yeah, it's a pretty good offer. It's tough to say, no, I don't want any of that. So when you do that, you get that access to people and you can build that collaboration and that community and you can step up through that, which is just an absolute amazing thing. The other thing I'm going to say is it helps you break up the types of content and, let's say, the monotony. There are times when sometimes you're just not enough, and it's interesting to have someone else come in, to have another voice, to have another perspective, another viewpoint. We kind of mentioned those before, and it breaks up that, hey, I'm just going to listen to someone drone on and on and on and on and on about the same topic all the time. You can be wonderfully informative, but if it's the same thing over and over and over again, some people may get, let's say, a little too used to it, a little too comfortable with it, and it might be time to shake that up a little bit. That can really help you do that. So a couple of things that we want to talk about real quickly in terms of guest selection. Now, when you come into our studios or if we're consulting with you, we will help you with guest selection. We help lay out an entire plan on how to make sure you're doing that right. And there's three main things that we help you with on that. So first off is aligning your guests with your target audience. It doesn't make sense to have someone come in that isn't sharing an audience with you. You should already have some overlap in your audience. If it's someone, if I'm going to talk motorcycles and someone else is going to talk swimming, those are two things that just don't have a whole lot of overlap. So making sure that the person is once again, there's already some overlap. So that way we can share those audiences. We've got that mutually assured benefit in that, yeah, we're going to share our audiences. So making sure that they align with your target audience. Something else that we work with a lot on podcasts here is preparing meaningful questions. When it comes to a guest, so many people ask surface level questions. So when did you become interested in being a doctor? That is going to be a half an hour long story that's going to lose people pretty quickly when you start to look at that. We want to make sure that you're going to dive in and you're going to ask these questions. They're going to have great answers. If you ask a softball of a question, you're going to get a kind of a marshmallow of an answer back. If you ask something that maybe has a little bit more of a sharp stick pointed with it, you're going to get a sharper answer. And that is going to be what people want to listen to. That's going to be what people want to watch. So we'll work with you in that. So as you're looking at questions, make sure you do that. That preparation for that, you guys always hear me say, preparation is key. So make sure you're preparing those good questions. The other thing is make sure that you promote your guests. Be a good host. I mean, everyone's mother told them that when they were growing up. Be a good host. Don't make your guests clean up after themselves. Don't do that. But in the same sense, mention their work. If you're having someone in that just wrote a book recently, mention the book. If they've just accomplished something recently, mention that accomplishment. Give them that shout out. In the same sense, mention their social media handles. Make sure you encourage your listeners to go out and find this person. You're here to make sure that there's a mutual benefit for both of you. Making sure that you throw them that bone through the podcast is a great way to make sure that people realize that you're a good host, that you bring value to anyone that comes on your podcast. That makes it so it's so much easier to, you guessed it, get more and better guests. Overall, inviting guests into your business podcast, it's a great strategic move. I mean, you're going to expand your audience, your reach, your credibility. You're going to create engaging content. And really, that's what it's all about. It's creating that engaging content, getting people to stick, getting people to sit down and watch and be like, yes, that is something that I want to pay attention to. That all being said, next week, I've got something great for you. So we are going to talk about how to set up for guests and how to make sure that you're ready, your guest is ready, and that things go smoothly. So make sure you're subscribed, make sure you've got the RSS clicked, make sure you have turned on all the notifications bells. And as always, I will see you guys soon.